Hello, everyone, and happy week 18 or sad week 18 if your team has been eliminated from the playoffs, as I know what this is like. And this is usually a very sad week for us football nerds that just love watching football. And when our favorite team is down to their last game, it's brutal. It's tough. It's a long off season with the NFL. So I feel for all the fans of the teams that have been eliminated. Plus, you don't even know if you want to root for them this week or not really root for them this week so they could get a better draft pick. It's tough. It's a tough week, but at least you can look forward to things getting better from here. What I'm going to do in this episode is just do a quick rundown through the Week 18 slate, see pretty much what the headlines are for each game and what the storylines are heading into all these Week 18 matchups and what we're looking at. We'll begin with Saturday. Which gives us two games on Saturday. The first one is Cleveland at Baltimore. And what we're looking at here is pretty much Baltimore. If they can get this W, they pretty much will secure themselves the 3 seed, and that means they secure the AFC North. So a lot of these games you'll see, like in this one, have implications on other games. So Baltimore pretty much needs to win, and they clinch the NFC North, which gives them the division title. And obviously then makes sure for them that they don't have to go on the road in round 1. So what that means for the next game on Saturday, which is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers, it means that the Pittsburgh Steelers now can't win the AFC North. So the first game kind of will tell us some information on the implications in the second game on Saturday. The second game with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh is much more exciting because both teams have something to play for. Whereas the first game with Cleveland at Baltimore, Cleveland is out of there. They're done. So they're not playing for anything except for a draft pick. So this seems like a sure layup. Baltimore right now is favored by 20 points. So clearly the sports books and everybody knows Baltimore should mean business. Cleveland should also mean business decision by pretty much tanking the game to secure a better draft pick and end their season, which is already pretty much over. The Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game intriguing because, like I said, assuming Baltimore takes care of business, the Steelers now can't clinch the AFC North anymore. So now really what they're playing for is just seeding. So right now they are the 5th seed, which means that they would be the first wild card team, which means they would be going to play at the worst division winner's house, which right now is Houston, the Texans. And it's going to remain the Texans because they can't catch the 3 seed. Follow? It's a lot going on. So if Baltimore wins their game, we'll assume they win their game. Pittsburgh, what they have to play for is that matchup at Houston against the Texans. Because if they lose, potentially then the Chargers with a victory could jump them in the standings. And that could mean that then Pittsburgh has to travel to Baltimore for their round 1 game. So pretty much for Pittsburgh, if they win, they play at Houston. If they lose, they play at Baltimore. Again, this is assuming Baltimore takes care of business against the Browns. So there's still implications for the Steelers, and I think anybody that has watched football would much rather go play at the Texans than go play at the Ravens. So that's what's in play for the Steelers. And now the Bengals, who they're hosting, what's in play for them is the playoffs. I mean, if they lose, they're eliminated. If they win, they stay alive to possibly get into that 7th and last playoff spot. So a lot is going on. So we shall see how everything plays out. But that's what I'm looking for. The first game on Saturday, again, definitely something to play for Baltimore, but it should be pretty much an ass whooping. For the second game, that one's really exciting. So both teams should be trying to play hard, and both teams should be trying to get the dub. I would say there's more at stake, obviously, for Cincinnati because if they lose, their season's over. Whereas Pittsburgh, if they lose, they're still making the playoffs. It's just their first-round matchup now became a lot tougher. All right, that's Saturday's games. Now we move to the Sunday slate. We'll start with the morning games, 10 a.m. here on the West Coast. Carolina at Atlanta. Atlanta has something to play for. They need to win and a Tampa Bay loss to get into the playoffs and to win the NFC South. If they lose, they're completely eliminated from the playoffs. There's no hope. They can't even get a wild card spot. So they're out if they lose. Carolina has been eliminated, but they're playing to, give Bryce Young some more run and try to improve on not a great season, but at least with the way it started, where it seemed like Bryce Young was a complete bust. The fact that he's showing some promise lately, hey, at least you can maybe end the season on a high if you play well here and you feel like you have the quarterback that's going to lead your franchise. Washington at Dallas. Dallas doesn't have much to play for. Washington, on the other hand, they're playing for playoff seeding. So in the NFC right now, they are the 6th seed. Really, they can't get to the 5 seed, so they can't be the top wildcard spot. But if they lose, they would drop to the 7th seed if Green Bay beats Chicago. So again, the Commanders are playing for something, and Dallas is not. So we shall see how that one plays out. Washington is favored by 6.5 because I think the books expect Washington to take care of business since they have more on the line. But it is an NFC East game where, crazy things happen in division. So we'll see how that goes. But if the Commanders can win and hang on to the 6th seed, they would be going to play at the LA Rams. However, if they lose and the Packers jump them in the standings, now they might have to go play at Philadelphia. And so if I'm the Commanders, I would much rather play at the Rams than at Philadelphia. But hey, we shall see how that plays out and what ends up happening there. Let me make sure something's wrong on here on the standings that I'm looking at. So I'm trying to make sure that this is right. 2, 3, right now. Okay, because Tampa would be the 4 seed. Sorry, got it. Okay. All right, so now we're looking at Chicago at Green Bay. So we just kind of briefly talked about that. Green Bay can't win the NFC North, but what they can do is try to jump Washington if they win and Washington drops. And if Green Bay loses, well, they're still in the playoffs and they would still play at the Eagles. So actually, they would not play at the Eagles. They would play either at – they would play at the Eagles. Sorry, it is so confusing with how the playoffs are being broken down. But yes, that's because the loser of the Lions-Vikings, even though their record would be 14-2, would be the 5th seed. So that's what's throwing me off here. So again, they would have a better record than the Eagles, but because the Eagles were winning the NFC East, the Eagles will be seated at number 2, and the loser of the Lions-Vikings game would be seated at number 5. So that's what's happening here. So again, the Packers, if they lose, they're going to have to go and play the Eagles. If they win, there's a chance that they would be able to jump to number 6 and play the Rams at number 3. All right, moving along, Houston at Tennessee. Honestly, Tennessee has nothing to play for. They should be probably just trying to lose to get a better draft pick, but Houston has been pretty shaky. They haven't been playing well. If anything, I don't know why this line is Tennessee by 1.5. I feel like Houston should want to win this, even though they can't really do much in the standings. But even for DeMeco Ryans, just to feel better, because if they lose this game and then they go on and drop the first game of the wild card playoff round, it's just going to be a bad ending to a season that many people thought the Texans could actually make some noise in. So at least if he can maybe win this, he could be like, hey, we finished the regular season off with a win. The record looks better. Instead of 9-8, they would be 10-7. And then, obviously they'll try to win their playoff game, but I just don't see it. I think they're a one and done team. So I think they, I don't know. I don't know why Tennessee's favored here. Weird line. Jacksonville at Indianapolis. Yeah, nothing going on here. They should be fighting over trying to lose for this game just to get a better draft pick. But it is what it is. It's in Indianapolis. They're the better team. They're favored by 4, but you never know. Buffalo at New England. New England should definitely be trying to lose this game. They are currently holding the number 1 pick in the draft, which is huge leverage for them. They could trade down, get more players. They already have their quarterback of the future with Drake May. So Buffalo has nothing to play for. They should be benching people anyway. Josh Allen's not going to play. So this should be a Buffalo win just because of how badly New England should want to lose. Buffalo, hey, you know what? If they win, it doesn't hurt them. So I feel like their players will be trying to play to win anyway. New England, again, if they win, that's kind of a catastrophe. I get it. Honestly, I like the integrity of when teams try to win every single game. So I wouldn't knock them for winning, because that's what I like about the NFL, that there's not really blatant tanking. But business decision-wise, and the people upstairs and the GM and the coach should be trying to find ways to make this a loss, but we'll see how it plays out. New York at Philadelphia. The only thing really for us to pay attention to here was if Saquon would break the all-time rushing record. He only needed like 100 yards to get it, but he's not going to play. So the Eagles are saying, hey, Super Bowl was way more important than personal records. Respect on that. I would like to see Saquon try to go for it, but not going to happen. So that's that. New Orleans plays at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, they need to win. So this line is evident of that, as Tampa Bay is favored by 14 at home against New Orleans. New Orleans pretty much just trying to get a better draft pick, whereas Tampa Bay, if they win, they're the NFC South winners, and they're in, and they would be the 4th seed in the NFC, which means they would be hosting the loser of the Lions-Vikings game. So tough matchup either way for Tampa Bay, but you would get a home game. You never know, and you'd be in the playoffs. So Tampa's going to go all out here. And that's also the last 10 a.m. game. So they're playing at the same time as Atlanta's playing, so they got to go all out, assuming that Atlanta would take care of business. The afternoon games are Kansas City at Denver. It gets interesting here because Kansas City's benching, resting everyone. They have nothing to play for. They've already locked in the number 1 seed, and they already have the bye week in the first round of the playoffs. But Denver, on the other hand, needs to win to get in. And if they win, they would eliminate Cincinnati and Miami from possibly getting into the playoffs, which, I mean, if I'm Kansas City or really anybody else for that matter, I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind if the Dolphins got in because Kansas City has owned them in Kansas City, but I think those teams don't want to see Cincinnati. They rather see them out already because they have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, so they could be dangerous in the playoffs. So I think Kansas City is being smart and not just resting their guys for the playoff run, but also quite possibly trying to let Denver sneak into the playoffs. That way, if Denver ends up winning or there's an upset in round 1, eventually they much rather play Denver in the playoffs than Cincinnati. So Denver is a win-and-in scenario. The Los Angeles Chargers play at the Vegas Raiders. Raiders, they've been winning a couple games, so we'll see how that goes. But the Chargers are favored by 4, as they should be. They're the better football team here. And the Chargers are the 6th seed right now, a chance to move up to the 5th seed potentially. And that's where that Saturday Steelers game has implications, because if the Steelers win that game and knock out the Bengals, then really the Chargers, even if they win, they can't really move up to the 5th seed. So at that point, we might see the Chargers start resting some of their guys as well. We'll see how that plays out. Seattle at the LA Rams. LA really doesn't have much to play for. Seattle's also been eliminated. So this is kind of, the Rams might play their guys a little bit. And Seattle, obviously, they'll try to win. They'll try to play well because, they're not a tanking team. They're not at the bottom of the standings. But really not a very exciting game. Seattle's even favored by 6.5 because I think the books assume that the Rams are just really going to rest most of their guys. Miami at the Jets. Miami needs to win to give themselves a chance to get into the playoffs. They need to win, and they need the Broncos to lose. That's what is going on there. San Francisco at Arizona. The Niners are completely eliminated. So is Arizona. Another game that, hey, let's see what some of these guys can do. It's the last week of the season. And then it all comes down to the Sunday Night Football game, the big matchup of the week. Everybody knows it. The Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. The winner not only obviously wins the NFC North, but more importantly, takes the number 1 seed in the NFC with the first round bye week. Huge. This is pretty much a playoff game the way I see it, because the loser is going to have to go most likely to play at Tampa Bay in round 1. If not Tampa Bay, it will be Atlanta in round 1. So you get to avoid that playoff game completely if you win this game. So the way I see it is these two teams get 2 cracks at round 1 of the playoffs. So they get 2 chances to win, to advance to the divisional round. And if they can do it in the first game, they avoid the second game completely. That's the way I see it. This is a playoff game pretty much. So, again, if Minnesota wins, they get to skip next week, the first round of the playoffs, and just sit at home and wait for their opponent. And if Detroit wins, they get to do the same and, get a bye week and get healthy, or as healthy as they can. They are pretty banged up. So we shall see. Right now, Detroit is favored by 2.5 points. They've been a great team all year, so I don't see why the line should go the other way. I think that's a fair line, and we should see how it all plays out. So that is the Week 18 slate. I'll come back after Week 18 to kind of recap and see what we saw on Sunday, but very exciting for the main games. not really that exciting for all the other games. So this is always how it goes, Week 18, but at least we get some really good matchups. I think the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game, a lot of implications there, and obviously the Minnesota-Detroit game. You get a playoff game in Week 18 to watch. So this should be exciting, and we'll see how it plays out. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you after Sunday.